Very good morning. Myself, Dr. Ruchi Gupta. Today we will discuss software configuration management and risk management. These are come under the software maintenance part, that is a fifth phase of SDLC. Already we have done all the phases of SDLC in detail. So now we come on configuration management. So not only we have to develop the software, but also we have to manage our software very efficiently. So for the management of software, we have to use some strategies. So one of the strategy is a configuration management. So what is a configuration management? It is the process of controlling and documenting change to developing a system. So means when we have to change in the existing software. So at the time of some changes in the documentation as well as in the development part, so we have to manage or control all these changes which we have done during the maintenance phase. So as the size of an upward increase, so does the necessity of implementing the effective CM, because once we have done some changes in the software, there is a need of some management and control, because the size of software, it may increase during some upgradation. So software configuration management, it is a set of activities that are designed to control change by identifying the work products that are likely to change, establish and relationship among them. So it defines a mechanism for managing different versions of these work products. So once we have to upgrade our software, so number of versions we have to create it, and we have to manage or control all these versions of the software during this software configuration management process. So we have to define the mechanism for managing different versions of these work product, control changes that are imposed, and auditing and reporting on the changes that are made. So continuously we have to report or we have to monitor these changes which we have to done during the maintenance phase. So another definition of configuration management is that the process of software development and maintenance, it is controlled, is called configuration management. So means the whole process of development and maintenance is to be controlled by a mechanism that is called a configuration management. So the configuration management, it is different from in the development and maintenance phases of life cycle due to different life cycle environment. So configuration management have various activities. These activities are divided into 4 categories. So the first activity is first of all, we have to identify the components and what the changes are required and how we can control these changes. So first of all, we have to identify these components where we have done some changes. Secondly, the control of the way by which the changes are made. So we also control the process where we have to changes, and then continuously monitor or these changes. We have to auditing these changes, and finally we have to status accounting and recording of all the documentation of the activities that takes place. So in where we have to change, in which particular phase we have to done some changes, we have maintain a proper record about that particular phase. So the purpose of this SCM is who is responsible for change, when the changes are made, why there is a need of changes, and what changes are required. So there is a proper cycle of SCM that we have to control, we have to manage all these things. So first of all, we have to know that who are the developers who will make some changes in the existing software, and when the changes are done in the software, why there is a need of some changes and what changes we have to done. So we have to track all these records, we have and we have to maintain all these records during SCM. So once we have to apply this SCM process for the manage or controlling the software, so there is a need of some planning. So there is an software configuration management planning. So configuration management planning, it is start during the early phases of the project. Means we can say once we have to start from the problem statement. So at the very early phases, we have to start the process of SCM planning also. So the outcome of SCM planning phase is the software configuration management plan. So we have to generate some plan about the controlling or managing the software. So these plans are called SCMP, that is a software configuration management plan, which might be extended or revised during the rest of the project. And all the products of the software process may have to be managed. We may manage specification part, designing part, programming part, test data part, or user manual part. So we have to manage the software during the whole phases on the software development as well as in the maintenance phase also. So thousands of separate documents may be generated for the large complex software system, and it defines the type of documents to be managed and documents naming schemes. We also define who takes the responsibility for the CM procedure, means who are the users who will make some changes in the software. We also define the policies for the change control and the version management, and we also define some configuration management records that must be maintained. We define the process of tool use. We also define this configuration management database that is used to record configuration information. Also, we have to include some information such as CM of external software, processing, auditing, etc. Now, what are the advantages of using this configuration management activities? So there are certain advantages of using these activities because first of all, it reduces the confusion and establishing order. It organizes the activities that is necessary to maintain a product integrity. So if we have to apply this configuration management process, so we can easily organize all the activities. We can also ensure the correct product configuration, and we reduce the life cycle cost. This is the most important things which we have to consider during the maintenance or development phases. We also enable some consistent conformance with the requirement. We have to specify the requirements and we have to complete all these requirements. We enhance the compliance with the standards and enhance the status accounting. Now, these are the various functions of SCM. First, identification, then change control, status accounting, and auditing. These are basically 4 functions of SCM. So, what is identification? Identification means those items whose configuration need to be controlled, usually consisting of hardware, software, and documentation. So, first of all, we have to identify that at what part there is a need of some changes, at the part of hardware, software, or documentation. So first of all, we have to identify where there is a need of some changes. So this is identification part. Then the change control. In this change control process, we have to establish a procedure for proposing or requesting some changes, evaluating these changes for the desirability, and obtaining the authorization for changes, publishing and tracking these changes, and implementing these changes. And this function also identify the people and organizations who have authority to make changes at the various levels. So we can say that we have to apply the procedure for the changes in this second step of SCM, that is a change control process. In this, we have to evaluate the changes, we have to request for the changes, as well as we have to publish and tracking some changes. Now, the third step is a status accounting. So, in the status accounting, it is the part of documentation which we have to maintain during some changes. So, it is a documentation function of CM. The primary purpose of this status accounting is to maintain a formal record which we have changed. So, we have to maintain a formal record of established configuration and make a regular report of configuration status. So means we can say that not only we have to maintain a records in the first time only when we have done some changes, but also we continuously monitor the changes in the software or the project, and we continuously upgrade the document also as per the changes in the project. So these records should accurately describe the product and are used to verify the configuration of the software for the testing, delivery and other activities. Now the last step of this configuration management is the auditing. So auditing means in this auditing process, effective configuration management, it requires a regular evaluation of the configuration. Means auditing means we continuously monitor the performance, we continuously monitor the changes which have done in the project, and we have to continuously upgrade the record also. This is a part of auditing. So in the auditing part, configuration management, it requires a regular evolution of the configuration. This is done through the auditing. So continuous monitoring process, it has done during the auditing process, where the physical and functional configuration are compared to the document configuration. So in this phase, we have compared the old or existing document with some new or upgraded document. So the purpose of this auditing is to maintain the integrity and the baseline of the release configuration for the controlled product. So basically these are four functions of configuration management which we have considered during the SCM activities. The first is identification, then change control, then status accounting, and finally the auditing function. Now SCM terminology. When we have done some changes in the project, so we have to create some versions. We have, after some changes, there is a new version of the project has been implemented. So there we also control or manage the versions of these project. So there are some terminology about this SCM: version control, then change process control, and the documentation also. So what is version control? Version control tool is a first stage towards being able to manage multiple versions, because I have already told you that in the SCM activities, they have to maintain or control the focus of the SCM activity is only to monitor the changes in the project. So once we have to upgrade the project, the multiple versions or multiple copies of the project is being implemented. So we need to monitor all the versions of the project. So once it is in place, a detailed record of every version of the software must be kept. So, and this comprise the name of each source component, including the variations and the revisions. So that we can easily compare the existing version with the new version. The name of the software, staff who constructed the component, and finally the date and time at which the new version of the project was constructed. Now the second is a change control terminology. So change control process comes into the effect when the softwares or associated documents are delivered to a configuration management change request, as shown in the figure. This is a change request form. So this is a performer of change request form. There is, when we want some changes in the project, so software developer or maintenance team fill this performer. So in this performer, there is a project ID, change request with date, component affected, some associated components, change assessment, date submitted to CCA, change date of decision, change implementer, and date of implementation. So we have to fill the person is responsible to fill this change request form. Now the documentation. So software documentation is written a record of the fact about the software system recorded with the intent to convey purpose. Basically, there are two type of documentations to be prepared by the SCM method. One is a user documentation, which is to be provided to the customer. So this is user documentation. We have to cover all these things in this user documentation, and these are the functions like system overview that provide a general description of system interface, installation guide, beginner's guide, reference guide, enhancement, quick reference, system administration. These are the part of user guide or user documentation, which is to provide to the user or customer. And this is the documentation for the system administrator part. So in this, the document is to be prepared, that is system rationale, that describe the objective of the entire system, then SRS, then design, then implementation part. This is basically a technical documentation part, which is only used by the developer or system administrator. System test plans, accepted test plans, data dictionaries. So these come under system documentation. So these are some various activities of SCM: configuration, identification, promotion management, release management, branch management, variant and change management. Now we come on the another management process, that is risk management. That is also considered. This is at the time of during maintenance as well as during implementation process. So risk is a problem that may cause some loss or threaten the success of project. So it is very essential to consider the risk at the very initial phase, because if we have not considered the risk, and risk is nothing, it's about the risk is about the cost, risk is about the time, risk is about the resources, and risk is about the functionality. So risk, it is a potential that chosen action or activity that lead to loss. So potential losses themselves may also called risk. So we have to, first of all, we have to consider these risks, and then we have to apply the risk management process. So what is a risk management process? It is a process of identifying, addressing and eliminating the problems before they can damage the project. So before they affect the successness of the project, we have to eliminate these problems during risk management process. So risk management is the identification, assessment and prioritization on followed by coordinating and economical application of resources to minimize, monitor and control the probability of the risk or the impact of unfortunate events. There are certain type of risk which we have covered, as I have already discussed, that risk is about time, risk is about cost, risk is about schedules. So the first is schedule risk. So in the schedule risk, project schedule gets slipped when project task and schedule release risk are not addressed. So suppose we have a wrong estimation of time, so and we have not delivered the project on time, then it is about the schedule risk. So if we have wrong time estimation, resources are not tracked properly, and failure to identify the complex functionality, there may be any reason for schedule risk and unexpected project expansion. So there may be any problem regarding the schedule risk. These second category is operational risk. Operational risk is about loss due to some improper process or implementation. So means some risk has been come during implementation phases. So causes of these risks, like for example, failure to address conflicts, if we have failure to resolve the responsibility, if we have some insufficient resources, no proper training, no resource planning, no communication, or there is a communication gap in the team, so that the operational risk may occur. The third category is about technical risk. Technical risk failure to the functionality and performance, and they come due to continuous changing requirement and difficult project module integration, and if we don't have any advanced technology, then also we face some technical risk. There is another risk, that is a programming risk. So there are some external risk beyond the operational limits, like running out of form if we have some bugs in the program, some market development, some changing customer product strategy. If suppose some government rules changes, then we have to face some programming risk also. And this is one of the major risk which we have considered, that is budget risk. If we have to plan the wrong estimation budget, cost is overrun and project scope is expand, then the cost is automatically or it may exponentially increased. So these are some risk about the project. So we need to manage these risks. So for this, there we have to use some RBS process, that is a risk breakdown structure. It is a hierarchical list of risks. So first of all, we have to identify all the risks in the project. Then we have to eliminate these risks during this risk management process. So risk breakdown structure, it is basically a process of, it is a hierarchy of list of risk that helps to identify and manage the project risk. And in this, for example, we have to create the list of these risk in our project, like technical risk, management, organizational, external. So we have to consider all the list. We have to prepare a list of risk. Then we have to apply the risk management process. So risk management process, it describes the step you need to take, identify, monitor and control the risk. So in this process, we have to identify the risk, we have to do some assessment of the risk, and then finally we have to control the risk. So risk process allow you to identify each risk, quantify the impact and take some actions about that risk. So this is a complete risk management process. Risk management, the first is risk assessment and second one is a risk control process. So in the risk assessment process, we have to identify the category of risk which we have already discussed. Then we have to analyze and give the priority to the risk. Then the second step is that how we can control the risk. So in this process, we have do some planning about the risk management, then risk monitoring and risk resolution. So these are some risk management activities which we have to consider during the risk management. So thank you very much.